Welcome in, everybody, to the Friday Night Press Box Podcast. I'm Tim Towe alongside Jake West. Exciting show today as we're going to talk about rivalries in our coverage area. We're 15 days away from scrimmages starting up for the football season, so we're almost to the point where we can start making predictions about the upcoming season and all that stuff. But right now, we're just going to talk about the rivalries in the area. And Jake, I know I'm excited. We're another day closer to football. How you doing this week?
I'm good. You mentioned going to a 7-on-7 this evening. Maybe I'm glad we saw a 7-on-7 last week at Hayesville that we put together. It went smoothly. I'm ready to see them put real pads on, and I'm ready to see some kids hit each other.
Absolutely. It can't come quick enough. We got a lot of rivalries in the Smoky Mountain Conference, Jake, and the state champions come out of there the last few years. So go ahead and let's talk about that for a little bit.
Well, first, before we talk about the rivalries in North Carolina, you can't say rivalries in the entire state of North Carolina without talking about the Tuscola-Pisgah rivalry, the Haywood County Championship game, Battle for Haywood, whatever you want to call it. I believe USA Today voted it as the number one high school football rivalry in the state of North Carolina. So, I mean, any game that draws 15,000 fans a year is definitely going to be the number one rivalry. I think that the Tuscola-Pisgah rivalry, even though they're not in our coverage area, in our area as a whole, that's going to be the top football rivalry in our area as a whole. I mean, there's no other game anywhere close around here that's going to draw 15,000 people. The reason that rivalry is so big is because it's the only two schools in Haywood County. They're less than 9 miles apart, and the best thing about that rivalry is that the football game they play every year pays for half of each team's athletic programs for the next 2 years, which is, I mean, that's insane. I think I read online where the attendance for that game is over 3 times the attendance of a normal Tuscola home game or a normal Pisgah home game. So, I mean, if you want to research that rivalry more, there's a ton of stuff about it online. Go watch some of the videos on YouTube, and you can see the atmosphere. It really is like a college game day atmosphere. Maybe somebody needs to send a letter and get ESPN to come to Haywood County this year on a Friday night when Tuscola and Pisgah play. But on the other hand, in North Carolina, I don't think you can talk about rivalries without talking about just the Smoky Mountain Conference as a whole. Tim, I know you got to experience Smoky Mountain Conference rivalries firsthand last year, and I think going to Robbinsville and Murphy, that game, those 2 games last year, you got to see just kind of what it's all about. And I know when you left that game, you were like, man, this is one of the best rivalries I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I think I told you and BKP and Caleb, I said this is the best rivalry in this area. I've never seen anything like it in a high school football environment. You know, and we'll talk more in the Georgia portion about Gilmer, Pickens, Fannin, Gilmer. But to me, as being fortunate to see some of those games, I've never seen anything like Murphy and Robbinsville. I know you're going to talk about that at length here in just a second.
Yeah, Murphy and Robbinsville, I would say, as of late, is the best rivalry in the Smoky Mountain Conference. I would say a few years ago it would have been Swain and Murphy, but right now it's Murphy and Robbinsville, just in terms of competitiveness. It seems like they flip back and forth every year between who's going to be crowned state champs that year. We saw, I know you can attest to this, Tim, because you saw it too. The kids last year left it all on the field in that regional championship game. We saw Nathan Collins down on his knees after it was over. I mean, they have nothing left when the buzzer sounds at the end of the game because they've left it all out there on the gridiron. Actually, since the 2004-2005 season, it's kind of that's as far back as we can get stats in North Carolina. We don't have the historians association like you do over there in Georgia, Tim, unfortunately, but we can get stats back to 2004-2005, and since 2004-2005, Murphy leads the series 15 15-8, and they've outscored the Black Knights 696 to 429. Obviously, the rivalry goes back further than 2004. That's just all I can get the stats for. And the lopsidedness really came early on, because from 05 to 2013, Murphy won every game. And then in 2014, Robbinsville rattled off 4-5 wins in a row. And since 2015, it's been flip-flop back and forth pretty much between who's going to win. And the best part about this rivalry is these teams, because of the way the NCHSAA works, they will face each other in the playoffs. And they've done that 3, 4, 5, 6 times in the past 10 years. So, I mean, that's something that doesn't happen much in our area with these local teams playing each other in the playoffs. And when it comes down to playoffs, it is split down the middle. 3-3. Murphy's won 3 times in the playoffs. Robbinsville's won 3 times in the playoffs when it really matters. So don't let the 15-8 lead Murphy has really skew the stats, because when it really matters in the playoffs, it's split right down the middle. Another rivalry in the Smoky Mountain Conference is that we mentioned earlier is Swain versus Murphy. It's been neck and neck for the past 40 years, and we're going to release our last interview with former head coach David Gentry of the Murphy Bulldogs. We're going to release that interview next week, I believe. And in that interview, you can hear him say that Swain and Murphy is the best rivalry in the Smoky Mountain Conference. And who am I to argue with the GOAT? So if he says it's the best, then it's the best. Murphy's won 9 times, Swain's won 8 times. So it's a lot closer in the since 2004. Murphy's won 9 times, Swain's won 8 times. It's a lot closer. And I think what it boils down to, when Coach Gentry says that it's the best rivalry, I mean, he got win number 413, which gave him the all-time record in a 2-point game against Swain 2 years ago. So, I mean, the games are close every year, it seems like, between Murphy and Swain. Obviously, this past year it wasn't close, 39-7, Murphy winning. But it's 399 to 319, which is a lot closer than the Murphy Robbinsville in the past since 2004. So that just tells you how close it is. And actually, in 2019, it was a 1-point game, 15-14, when Coach Gentry broke the all-time win record. But just looking at, I've got it pulled up here on my screen. Just looking at when these teams have played since 2004, it's went Swain, Murphy, Murphy, Swain, Murphy, Swain, Murphy, Swain, 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 Murphy, Swain, Murphy, Swain. I mean, it just flip-flops. It flip-flops every year, and I think you've got some rivalries that are like that in Georgia, Tim, that are just flip-flopped and neck every year. But really, what I wanted to talk about rivalries is just the Smoky Mountain Conference as a whole. The 1A or 1AA champion in football has come from the Smoky Mountain Conference 29 times since they started playing a state championship in 1972. I mean, those are insane numbers. And since 2011, the Smoky Mountain Conference has won 9 state titles, and every 1A state title for the past 5 years has been won by a Smoky Mountain Conference school. So, I mean, Robbinsville, Murphy, Swain, and Cherokee, they've all won Smoky Mountain Conference titles. Obviously, Robbinsville winning – or state championship titles, sorry. Robbinsville winning 12 since 1972. Murphy's won 10. Swain's won 8. And in 2017, Cherokee won their first one. So
Jake, I want to interrupt just for a second. I want people, we're bringing a lot of attention to the Smoky Mountain Conference to our viewers in North Georgia. I want them to understand, just because that this is 1A football in North Carolina doesn't mean that these athletes and these coaches aren't great. I mean, these schools can compete. I promise you. You. If you ever get around these programs and see the tradition and how much work they put in, you will respect Smoky Mountain Conference football. I promise you. I'll be honest with you. I was not expecting what I saw last season. I was blessed to be able to be alongside you, to be on the booth in Murphy. Smoky Mountain Conference is for real. Just because it's 1A, it's not 1A football. I promise you. It's not 1A football. These are good teams, great tradition, great programs, great players.
Yeah, and you can tell that just because whenever if it's Swain and Murphy that usually get moved up and moved back down, and when Murphy and Swain have been in 2A, they've won state titles in 2A. I mean,
Yes.
they've won. There's 29 1A state titles and 32 state titles in 1A or 2A. So I mean, when they do get moved up, they do win. Murphy won in 74, Swain won in 79 as 2A schools. Since then, they haven't really been moved up and down as much as they did back in the day. But you're right, Tim. I mean, I think 1A football gets a bad rep, and there are some bad teams in 1A football.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but these teams in this conference, they're not bad teams. All the way from Murphy and Robbinsville, all the way through down to Hayesville and Andrews. I mean, those are good teams that can win, that can beat anybody on any given Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, we may get a chance to see that in person this year with some Georgia North Carolina games. So definitely a lot of respect. I'm very impressed with the Smoky Mountain Conference, and I'm glad we're giving them a lot of attention, and they deserve it. So, we talk about some Georgia rivalries, Jake?
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's move on to Georgia and hear what you have to say about what's going on over across the state line.
Yeah, so obviously Georgia's a little bit spread out because most of our schools are in different regions, different classifications. So kind of we're going to jump around just a little bit here, but I think probably the top rivalry in our area, and this may surprise a lot of folks, is White County and North Hall. White County in Cleveland, Georgia, and North Hall in Region 7 AAA. We don't cover a lot of North Hall. We've covered White County more in the past than we have North Hall. But listen to these stats, Jake. 48 all-time meetings, okay? 48 all-time meetings. They are 24-24. Tied at 24. They're 5-5 the last 10 meetings. And the last 2 meetings, North Hall won last year 34-31, and White County won in 2019, the year before last, 34-31. If that doesn't scream rivalry to you, I don't know what does. I mean, great competition, 2 great teams. You got Coach Coley at White County, Coach David Bishop Coach Coakley at White County, Coach David Bishop at North Hall. Have done a great job with those programs and made some playoff appearances. But just, I think that to me in Georgia is one of the best rivalries. It's got to be one of the best rivalries north of Atlanta. Obviously, Dawson, Lumpkin, White, Dawson, Lumpkin, they're all really close together. I'm sure everybody calls that a rivalry, but, you always like to have a lot of close games the last few years, a lot of back and forth for me to be considered, a rivalry. That can be questioned a lot. What is a rivalry? Well, a rivalry can be a lot of things. We can do a podcast on that all day. What is a rivalry? But if you're looking at wins, losses, head-to-head games the last few years, you won't find White County and North Hall. I mean, that's great stuff right there. Obviously Pickens, Gilmer. I got Pickens, Gilmer ahead of Fannin, Gilmer. I think it's more of a long-standing rivalry.
Those two you just talked about right there, Tim. They remind me of the rivalries that I was talking about in Western North Carolina, with just the hatred between the two teams, and because of the closeness of the school. Yes.
And, as we know, Gilmer County's been down the last 10 years. But Gilmer County still leads the all-time series against Pickens County, 35-27. Obviously, when Coach Parker came in, he's kind of restored the rivalry back towards Pickens, and obviously Coach Nelson and Coach Myers will look to do that the same. 5, 6, 7. Pickens has won the last 8 rivalry games against Gilmer, and they will open up the season August 20th at Gilmer, as Paul Standard will make his debut at Gilmer and the debut in the Gilmer-Pickens rivalry. But Gilmer does lead the all-time series 35-27, and they had one tie. They tied back in 1986. I think 1972 they did not play. They've played every year since 1957, with the exception of 1972. And we asked on Twitter, and I think Coach Wigington told us that they were in the process of switching regions, and the region schedule just didn't line up, and they didn't play that year, but they later played in 1973 and resumed that game. So a good rivalry, not separated by much. Pickens Gilmer, I would put that as my number 2 rivalry. This one may surprise a lot of folks, Jake. Number 3, I've got Fannin and Union ahead of Fannin and Gilmer right now. Just with the success that Union's had over the past previous years compared to Gilmer County, it's kind of hard to put the Fannin Gilmer rivalry in there. Union leads the all-time series 15-14. So met 29 times, and Union leads the series 15-14. They first met in 1982. The first meeting was held at Union County in 1982. Fannin won the match 24-0. They've met every year since then. I lied, Jake. They have not met every year since then. There was a gap in between the years 1996 and 2000, and in 2005 and 2001, 2005, they did not play either. So that's kind of crazy that Fannin Union were that close and didn't get to play those years.
That was Fannin Union was one of the first games that I got to cover as the director of sports at FYN, and I think last year, what was it, 24-20?
Yes, it was a close game, really close game.
Yeah, and I could tell just by the atmosphere. It was the first game of the season. There was still a little bit of COVID scare in the air, and it wasn't as packed out as I think it would have been given a normal year. But it was still full. Stands were still full. Students were still there. What do they call it? The border war?
The border war, yeah, it's kind of a new term. Yeah.
I saw a few signs like that the students have made up in the student section. I'm excited to watch that one this year at Fannin. I think both teams travel really well. Union there'll be a lot of purple mixed in with that blue, I think, Tim, first game this season.
Oh yeah, a lot of excitement around Union County this year just because Brian Allison left. Expectations are still there. Michael Perry and Thomas Nelson joined the rivalry, and I'm excited to see it. It's going to be a special scene. Fannin Union, I have that as number 3. And then I would put Fannin Gilmer just because, but there is a lot of not a lot of hate there, but it's a rivalry. There's been obviously they're not playing this year. There was an issue with some contracts that we're not going to get into with the previous regime there at Gilmer, but why they're not playing this year. But they are going to scrimmage, and I believe from everything I've heard that Fannin Gilmer will be back on the schedule in 2022, as it should be. That's a game that both schools need that. A lot of money that supports the athletic programs there for that. But Gilmer leads the all-time series in the Fannin Gilmer rivalry. Gilmer leads 25-17, and they've tied twice. They tied back in 1984 and 1979. So that's some interesting facts there about the Fannin Gilmer rivalry. Fannin County has won the last 4 matchups. 2016, 17, 18, 19. Obviously, last year they did not play because of COVID. So
what do they call it? What do you guys call that?
Well, it's usually been the 5-15 rivalry. Back in the day, they had a 5-15 trophy between Fannin, Gilmer, Pickens, and the winner of that would share it. And that's another thing. I would love to see Fannin Pickens get back on the schedule too. Who knows if that'll happen.
We talked to Grant Myers when he got hired over at Pickens. He said that's one of the things that he wants to get back is the 5-15 rivalry. And I think Chad Cheatham over there at Fannin he's all for that, I would think.
Yeah. The only thing, Fannin has added Copper Basin, which back to the schedule, which is a rivalry. And that's another thing. A lot of people don't know this. Copper Basin leads the all-time series against Fannin County, 10-8. They last met back in 1997, and Copper Basin won that game 19-8. So they'll play now for the first time this year since 2021. I mean, since 1997 in the year 2021. Obviously, they have scrimmaged, but the last time Copper Basin and Fannin met, the Cougars got the best of the Rebels, 19-8, back in 1997. That's another good rivalry in the area. So
the ones that cross state lines are pretty. They're pretty fun to watch because like for that, since it crosses state lines, for that to be a rivalry, those kids. I mean, I think I've heard people from Copper Basin say it. I've heard people from Fannin County say it. When you grow up in Fannin County or you grow up over in Polk County, you're taught that you don't like each other. You don't like, if you're a Cougar, you don't like the Rebels. If you're the Rebels, you don't like the Cougars. And it's kind of a funny thing because it's not like you. I mean, I guess in rec league, you guys grow up playing against each other over there, right?
Yeah, and a lot of respect to their programs for sure. But it is a rivalry. But I think it's been so long since Fannin and Copper Basin played. I think there may have been more quote unquote this hatred and dislike, with the people that played in the last 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I don't think it's much of a rivalry as it used to be. But it's good to have that back. Both communities, I think it's great. I think there's a lot of positives that could come out of both teams playing. Guys, look, football. We know football is the sport that drives a lot of these. This supports a lot of these other secondary sports throughout the whole season. So you get Fannin and Copper Basin. We saw it 2 years ago in a scrimmage when we went and played in Copper Basin. There was tons of people. People were on the grass. People were. There was tons of people. There's no telling what the gate was there for that game. So, it's a lot of good things that can come out of playing each other in the community. And obviously, Basin's in a little bit of a rebuilding stage again, but they still got a lot of talent, and I think they're going to be very competitive against Fannin this year.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, you hear it talked about all the time. It doesn't matter if it's a rivalry. It doesn't matter if one team's up and one team's down. It's going to be tight. Just because, it means more when you're playing against your rival.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's obviously this list that we're creating. It's not perfect. It's not right. It's not, it's not wrong. Everybody can come up with their own rivalry list. That's just kind of mine. But I think it's hard to top White County North Hall. And I hope we get a lot of attention to that rivalry, and hopefully this podcast may bring a little bit to it, because playing 48 times and being tied at 24 in the last 10 meetings are 5-5, and the last 2 meetings, 30, 34, 31, that's pretty impressive. That's my number one. And obviously, I've got the others because they're close nearby and I know a lot about them. I wish I knew more about the west side of the state in Northwest Georgia. I know I talked to Ben Burge, who's going to help us a lot this year on Team FY Sports. The Chattooga Tryon rivalry is evidently a big rivalry, but they haven't played in a few years. They're very close to each other, but they've not played in a few years because a lot of animosity between those two when they played. Benton sent me a video when they scrimmaged a few years ago on a kickoff, and the place was just like, it was booming. So, I wish I had a little bit more knowledge about the west side of the state rivalries that we, with the Pepperells and the Chattoogas, Dades, Models. But, they're all kind of rivalries, much like, Fannin, Pickens, Gilmer. They're all rivalries, We're all in Murphy, Swain, Robbinsville, they're all tied in. They're all rivalries. But what's the best one? That's the question we ask.
Yeah. And I don't think, there's no way to answer that question. What's the best rivalry? I don't think. Because it just boils down to, I think, where your loyalties lie and where you're from. It means a lot more to you as a Fannin County Rebel when Fannin and Pickens play, or Fannin and Gilmer play, to beat that team. And obviously, it means a lot more to me just growing up around the Smoky Mountain Conference when those teams play. And I think just the close-knitness of – over in North Carolina especially, the close-knitness of the Smoky Mountain Conference and how we are not separated by much. I really do mean it when I say every Friday night it seems like in the Smoky Mountain Conference is a rivalry. and not even just football. I mean, it rolls over into everything else. I mean, you talk about rivalries in basketball, it's going to be Hayesville and Murphy, or talk about in baseball, it's definitely going to be Hayesville and Murphy. I mean, I just don't think if you're not a part of and you haven't grown up in the area of North Georgia or Western North Carolina or Southeast Tennessee where these small schools are, you don't really get the sense of what a rivalry means unless you are in a small town. I mean, I just don't think it means as much to I mean, I know they have rivalries in bigger cities, but I don't think it means as much because, I mean,
no.
Growing up around here, you hear your dad talk about playing this team and your grandpa talk about playing this team. And I don't know, it's fun to see the legacy of rivalries just each year in and year out continue. And I think it takes a lot away from the kids when you're not allowed to play in these rivalries. I mean, I think it stinks that Gilmer and Fannin aren't going to get to play. I mean, because I know there's kids on the Gilmer team and kids on the Fannin team whose parents played, their dads played against each other, and they wanted to see their kids play. I mean, I don't know. It just stinks when adults get in the way of kids being able to have fun and continue these rivalries going on.
I agree, and you make a good point. You know, in the mountains here, high school football means a lot to us. You know, our schools mean a lot to us. I'll give you a prime example. I think about 3 years ago, I went down with a buddy and I watched Grayson and Colquitt County play each other. If you look up Grayson and Colquitt County in the last few years, two of the most successful programs in the state of Georgia in high school football. There wasn't a lot of people there. Wasn't a lot of people there at the game. And that's 7A schools, obviously big cities in that area. But there wasn't a lot of people there at the game. You go to a rival, you go to a Fannin Union, Murphy Robbinsville, Pickens Gilmer, White North Hall, and North Hall packs that place out, by the way. They do a great job of packing that place out. But you go to any of these rivalry games, there's not an empty seat. There may be a few empty seats, but, you know, I was expecting, you know, okay, I'm going to a 7A game with Grayson and Colquitt County. Both schools ranked in the top 100 in the nation. There may have been 400, 500 people there. Mountain football rivalries mean a lot to us, mean a lot to our communities. But that's the thing I love about high school football in the mountains is everybody cares about it, you know. And me and you probably care too much about it, Jake, because we're on here talking about it. But it's special. It's special, you know, and That's why we're doing a podcast about rivalries with 15 days away till the season starts. You know, we love high school football.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's a lot of people in our area, whether they want to admit it or not, they care about high school football just as much as we do, and they care about their school. They care about seeing their school succeed. I mean, if you love your community, you're going to want to see the school's football team succeed on Friday nights. I mean, it just brings – you saw it last year. Tim Fannin had their best season maybe ever, and you saw how much closer it brought the community of Blue Ridge and how it helped that town. I mean, it just – I don't know. It's kind of weird and it's kind of dumb, but I don't know. It's kind of like if there was no high school football in Blue Ridge, it'd almost be like losing – a plant or something like that. Like.
I mean, obviously, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't. I wouldn't know what to do if we didn't have high school football. I wouldn't.
Well, I think that and that covers what we wanted to cover today. Just talking about rivalries. We're about 30 minutes in. It'd be interesting. I want to. Be interesting to hear from people and get texts once we do go live about what everybody else thinks is the best rivalry. I'm sure everybody has their own opinion, and that's the best part about it.
Yeah, drop it in the comments here. We want to hear. We obviously our list. We know our list ain't perfect, but we want to hear what's your best rivalry. Also, tell us, hey, what's your favorite rivalry moment? You know, I think that would be cool to hear from fans, players, coaches. What's your favorite rivalry moment? I'll share one. Actually, I'm not going to share one. Never mind. But it's special. It's special, and for high school football special, I'm glad it's almost here, Jake.
Yeah, me too. What'd you say? 15 days till scrimmage time?
Can't wait. So, well, that'll conclude our show. Like we said, let us know in the comments, and also like and share us if you don't care, please. We're actually going to be presenting starting, I think, in 2 weeks. Every Thursday, we're going to have 3 shows. 3 shows. Friday Night Press Box by Team FYN Sports Southeast Tennessee show is going to be at 5 o'clock. The Western Carolina show is going to be at 6:30. The North Georgia show is going to be at 8. We're going to be talking to coaches, players, media members about the upcoming matchups. We're here to promote high school football, so any suggestions, any ideas, any things you guys want to see, I think, Jake, you agree with me, let us know. We're here to make this the best platform we can.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, Tim.
Yeah. Hey, drop us in the comments below. What's your favorite rivalry? Best rivalry moment. Let's hear your guys' answers. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you soon.